start the recording.
Good evening and welcome to the regular third Wednesday Vesper service of the UU Multiracial Unity Action Council. We embrace all who come with the spirit of worship and invite you to remain after the service for conversation. I'm Jack Reich. We begin with the lighting of our chalice. Richard Trudeau is doing the honors. Let this light symbolize for us the brightness of the truths that guide us. And now Richard has announcements.
Our next service is May 21st. The speaker will be Dr. Neville Book, who's an Australian scholar, sociologist, scholar of religion, with quite a mouthful of a title, Spiral Historiography, Socio-Historical Change in Unitarian Universalism. If you got the link for this service from that email, richard3point@gmail.com, you'll get a link for that service too, unless you opt out. And our past services can be found by going to our website and scrolling down to the link called Third Wednesday Services. If for some reason the link for this service was forwarded to you, and if you'd like to join our services in the future, just send an email to that address and you'll be added to our list. Two quick announcements. UMIAC has recently published a book, which is a selection of articles from the first 7 years of our journal, and it's available from Amazon. And more recently, another book by our founder, Reverend Dr. Finley C. Campbell.
Thank you, Richard. Our opening hymn is number 347, Gather the Spirit, by Jim Scott, in your hymnal service of the Singing the Living Tradition. And now Richard will tell us of the mission and vision of UUMUAC.
The UU Multiracial Unity Action Council has recently revised its mission and vision statements, and I'm just going to read the vision statement because I think that captures the essence of who we are and what we're about. We envision our congregations, associations, and communities as not being color blind, but color appreciative, as judging and treating people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, their cultural heritage, or other identity, and as treasuring diversity in the context of Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community. We call this vision multiracial unity.
And now
Here's the goal.
Go
Here's
ahead.
the unity of the light and dark skinned people of the world. That's what we're about.
Thank you, Richard. And now I have for you what we might call a brief reading, but it's actually a YouTube video.
Does God exist? Here's how to prove that God does not exist using logic and reason. Mainstream Christianity says that God is all-loving, meaning he wants the best for everyone. It also says that God is all-powerful and knows everything. But here's the problem. Some souls go to hell, which is an eternity of the worst fate imaginable. So if God wants to prevent souls from going to hell but can't, then he's not all-powerful. But if he can prevent it but doesn't, then he's not all-loving. So how does this make sense? Some argue that it's free will, but if choosing not to believe in God leads to eternal suffering, is that a fair choice? That's like an abuser saying, love me or I'll beat you. That's not love. Even if we accept that argument, remember that hell is eternal, and all loving being would at the very least give us another chance. But hell is forever, no second chances, so either God can't prevent people from going to hell, meaning he's not all powerful, or he won't, meaning he's not all loving. This contradiction proves that the God of the Bible, as described in traditional Christianity, is a logical impossibility and cannot exist. Does God exist? Here's how to prove that God does not.
And now we will have 1 minute for silent meditation, followed by our hymn number 358 in Singing the Living Tradition, Rank by Rank, Again We Stand. 1 minute for silence. Now, with the hymn, the words will be on the screen. I invite you to sing along, but of course, stay muted, please. Throughout history, the belief in a higher power or deity has played a significant role in shaping human societies and cultures. For many, the belief in God provides comfort, meaning, and guidance in navigating life's challenges. However, there is a growing body of evidence to suggest that blind faith in a higher power can also pose a serious threat to human survival. In fact, belief in God can undermine critical thinking, hinder scientific progress, perpetuate harmful ideologies, incite violence, and impede efforts to address urgent global challenges. One of the key ways in which belief in God threatens human survival is by undermining critical thinking and rational decision-making. When individuals base their beliefs and actions solely on religious doctrine, they are less likely to question authority, evaluate evidence objectively, or consider alternative perspectives. This can lead to closed-mindedness, dogmatism, and a reluctance to engage in thoughtful discourse and debate. Of course, we haven't seen any of that in our society nowadays. In an increasingly complex and interconnected world, this kind of unquestioning faith can hinder our ability to adapt to changing circumstances, solve problems, and make informed decisions that promote the well-being of all. Moreover, belief in God can also hinder scientific progress by promoting the idea that all knowledge comes from divine revelation rather than empirical observation and experimentation. This can lead to a dismissal of scientific evidence and an unwillingness to accept new discoveries that challenge religious beliefs. In some extreme cases, religious fundamentalism has even led to the suppression of scientific findings, such as the theory of evolution, that are deemed incompatible with religious teachings. This anti-science stance can have serious consequences for human survival, as it hampers our ability to understand and address pressing issues, such as climate change, disease outbreaks, and technological advances. Furthermore, belief in God can perpetuate harmful ideologies that marginalize and oppress certain groups within society. Throughout history, religion has been used to justify discrimination, violence, and the subjugation of marginalized communities based on factors such as race, gender, sexuality, and religion. This kind of intolerance and discrimination can hinder social cohesion, erode trust, and perpetuate systemic inequalities that undermine human survival. In a world that is becoming increasingly diverse and interconnected, it is imperative that we challenge these harmful beliefs and attitudes in order to create a more just and inclusive society that values the dignity and worth of all individuals. In addition, belief in God can also incite violence and conflict between different religious groups or between believers and non-believers. Throughout history, religious wars, persecution, and terrorism have claimed countless lives and caused immense suffering and destruction. When individuals are convinced that their beliefs are the only true and righteous ones, they may be more likely to demonize and dehumanize those who hold different beliefs, leading to intolerance, hatred, and violence. This kind of religious extremism poses a serious threat to human survival by fueling conflict, instability, and division within communities and societies. Besides this, belief in God can impede efforts to address urgent global challenges such as poverty, inequality, environmental degradation, and climate change. When individuals believe that God will intervene to solve all of humanity's problems, they may be less motivated to take action themselves or to support policies and initiatives that promote social justice, sustainability, and human rights. Drill, baby, drill. This kind of passive faith can perpetuate a sense of complacency and fatalism that hinders our ability to mobilize collective action and resources to address pressing issues that threaten the well-being of future generations. Plus, belief in God can lead to the neglect of personal responsibility and accountability for one's actions. When individuals believe that their fate is predetermined by a higher power, they may be less inclined to take ownership of their choices and behaviors, or to acknowledge the consequences of their actions on themselves and others. This kind of fatalistic mindset can foster a sense of resignation, helplessness, and disempowerment that undermines our ability to address personal and collective challenges in a proactive and constructive manner. Additionally, belief in God can foster a sense of moral superiority and self-righteousness that can hinder empathy, compassion, and understanding towards others. When individuals believe that they are chosen or guided by a divine authority, they may be more inclined to judge, condemn, or ostracize those who do not share their beliefs or values. This kind of religious exclusivism can foster division, distrust, and conflict within communities and societies, undermining our ability to build bridges, foster dialogue, and work together towards common goals that promote the common good. What's so sad about this is that it's all so unnecessary. There have been scores, even hundreds of deities created by human imagination over the eons. But as Richard Dawkins likes to point out, we are all atheists about most of them. We don't believe in Zarathustra or Wotan or Zeus, Ganesha or Shakti. But Yahweh, the one true God. Why do we hew to this notion? Because that's how we were raised. And really for no other reason. It's only the God of our particular sect that we believe in so fervently, and with an ardor that strains credulity. Perhaps people evince more agitation from the denial of their God than just about anything else in our existence. And yet it's all made up. Even among us Unitarian Universalists, many justifications for belief in God prevail. We can be quite inventive in devising reasons to cling to the comforting fantasy that we have an all-powerful friend in the sky who's looking out for our well-being, even as the daily play of events reveals that to be profoundly erroneous. Just think of the plane crash over the Potomac last winter that took the lives of those aspiring skaters, their parents and coaches, as well as the other 6 innocents aboard. How monstrous a being God must be to permit such horrors. But in reality, God doesn't permit such horrors because he doesn't exist, except in our perfervid imaginings. For all these reasons, and particularly because of the ongoing injury to our ability to think clearly and rationally, we need to bid adieu to God, and sooner rather than later, while there's still some possibility of avoiding human extinction through religious wars based solely on our harboring different visions of the supreme deity, and getting on with the crucial work of preserving a future for humankind on this planet. God knows we have our work cut out for us. So as we scan our future, will we wind up being just another self-deluding faith that insists our destiny lies in the hands of an impossible construct, spending millions of hours of priceless human energy toying with notions of divinity and the sacred? Or might we not lead the way for humankind into a time of rationality, science, and common sense? You use. A humanism that offers all comers a philosophy of existence that puts the onus for human flourishing where it always has ought to be, on human beings themselves. That would be a Unitarianism or Unitarian Universalism truly worthy of respect as the essential dogma of human civilization. I wonder how much time is really required to demonstrate that belief in God is a losing bet. It's true, isn't it, that most, though not all, of Earth's distinct cultures arrived at a belief in some sort of supernatural deity or group of deities thought to be the creator of the earth and of life. But that's simply because most cultures were wrong. Primitive humans sought explanations for the amazing phenomena they witnessed around them, and lacking comprehension of the physical laws which we know today underlie the existence of the planet, supposed the next best thing, intentional action by a being or beings necessarily possessed of far greater powers than any human agency. But today we know better, or at least we could know better, if we weren't stubbornly clinging to long outdated notions of superhuman agency, which we call God. But this is not merely ignorant and somewhat silly in modern times. It's also irresponsible. Yes, irresponsible. Like Nero, We're playing around with fanciful notions of this or that theology while Rome literally burns. Our insistence on maintaining a belief in a supernatural agency, God, prevents us from facing head-on the consequences of our actions on the planet, which threaten the very existence of humankind, possibly within our lifetimes. We face great danger from ourselves, not only because we are the cause of calamities such as rampant pollution and global warming, but also because in our reverence for God, we make the deadly error of relying finally on God's agency to remedy our earthly ills. God has a plan, people will say. Sure. And how do we know that plan isn't to eradicate us? Escaping the Gordian knot of environmental disasters we have woven will require a degree of cooperation and determined intentionality on the part of the large mass of humans, a commitment to which we may very well be skeptical. People do not seem inclined to relinquish any of their habitual comforts in order to stave off existential ruin. That may be partly because the oncoming threat of extinction is a very slow motion disaster. It is hard for me to see how giving up my Jeep Wrangler or my hamburger with fries is going to save humankind. And so repeatedly, I make the choice which dooms us. I and 7 or 8 billion others. Meanwhile, if we nurture a faith in a God who will save us from our own mistakes, what can this presage but a speedier doom? Unitarians and Universalists, too, have distinguished themselves among contemporary religions in often being the ones who go beyond most others to do good. And so, for example, in spite of deep prejudices, we threw ourselves into the fight over slavery largely on the abolitionist side. When nuclear weapons were developed, it was we who often energized protests against them. Recently, when our government sought to capture and expel a Mexican immigrant activist, Jeanette Vizquera, it was the First Unitarian Society of Denver, which offered her and her 3 youngest children sanctuary for 3 years. It is time for us, friends, to find the courage now to spark an intellectual and spiritual revolution, to turn humanity away from learned helplessness and toward a mature independence. Our age demands leaders who will sever the bonds of superstition and ignorance which continue to imprison so many of our fellows, and proclaim our capacity to manage our destiny without a tragic reliance on some imagined superpower. This is real life. It is not a Marvel universe. Our humanists have taught us that we can be religious without worshiping God. We can worship, that is, lift up those values and practices that we most cherish, without bending the knee to some imaginary deity. We can follow reason in the great adventure of endless discovery of the great mystery that is this unfathomable universe we are part of. We can help humankind find its way along paths littered with failure and pathos and defeat, among the rare victories over ignorance and despair, into a future perhaps even brighter than we ever dared imagine, lit with the brilliance of our best efforts. But to do so, we must say goodbye to God. We are on our way to a future based on concrete reality, not on fantastical imaginings of mythical powers that we summoned out of thin air ages ago to keep us company. We are all grown up now, and it is time for us to face the challenges ahead with courage, with reason, with self-confidence, and with humility, relying on the knowledge that we can do this if we will. And now Richard has an offertory words.
We don't literally pass a plate, of course, but we mentioned that we are a membership organization. You can learn about us on our website, umiac.org. Our goal is the unity of the light and dark-skinned people of the world.
Our closing hymn is by the late, great Shelley Jackson Denham. It's a short version of her hymn, We Laugh, We Cry, number 354 in Singing the Living Tradition. Now it's time to extinguish our chalice. Our service is ending. As we extinguish this chalice, Richard will do the honors. Symbol of our faith, we recall the words of the late Reverend Elizabeth Sully Jones. Now we extinguish our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now I have a treat for you, a 2-minute piece of closing music, after which the floor is open for conversation. and thus concludes our service. That's all I have.
Are we stopping the recording at this point?
We are.
Oh, okay. Unless someone objects, I prefer to keep it going so that people who watch later on YouTube can hear the discussion. How do you all feel about that?
Oh, it's fine with me, and anyone who doesn't want to be recorded can ask me to pause the recording when they're speaking.
Thank you, Richard. Marie. Hi, nice to see you.
Good to be seen. Thanks so much, Jack. I really enjoyed it. Well, this is recorded, right? And I could listen to it later on. Am I correct in understanding that it is being recorded?
Yes,
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes,
And the 354, that's in the Gray hymnal?
yes.
Oh, great. Well, the two reasons I'm asking, the humanist group is at First U is trying to have a human service, and and I'm going to plagiarize yours because I thought it was much more than I can put together myself. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
Mhm.
Yes, Shelley Jackson Denham.
Wait a minute, Alan's had his hand up.
Oh,
front.
Alan has had his hand up. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, I mean, if you're just adding to your remarks to Marie, you can continue to do that, and then I will speak.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to tell you all that Shelley was a musician who lived most of her life in Cincinnati and was music director of one of the churches there. Closed out her life in North Carolina, I think at the Mountain Retreat. She was a songwriter who has count them, 5 hymns in our hymnal. And her music, I think, is just wonderful. Alan?
Yeah. Okay. So first, I want to thank you. I think it was a well-constructed, rational presentation that addresses human belief in God in many structures or many ways. However, I don't think a belief in a God, though you use different terms, is necessarily excluded. You have, like, just to give you my example with my own theology, and this kind of, I would think, fits with many others too, though they may be not the same as mine. You can have a belief in a creative force that is kind of initiated and appreciates the creation and kind of lets it roll out through process, and that through each moment the creation is changing, and at each point we're able to contribute to that, and a belief that the creative spirit or creative capacity was shared with some of the entities in the creation, and humans are part of that. So we have a capacity, we've been blessed with this creative capacity, and we can use it at any point to help build a better beloved community, a better beloved cosmos, whatever you want to, bigger your scope is, that we can contribute to that. You can have a belief that there was a creative force that appreciates the ongoing development of the creation, but is not involved with day-to-day what's happening. It's kind of let it out there, and it's up to people. So you can be a humanist at the same time to, take charge of it. It's up to us or the creation to, at each moment, to develop toward a better creation for the future. So that's kind of my own belief. So, it's a belief that there's a creative force that appreciates the ongoing creation, but doesn't rely, there's no reliance on that, expectation that this is going to intervene, and change the course of things, because it's kind of set in motion with certain rules, and it's our responsibility, being blessed with the creative force, or creative capacity to help improve things at each time. So I don't think they're mutually exclusive. So enough said for me.
So I guess I'm next. I have to admit that I tire of this discussion of the traditional biblical personality, God. And I find it, well, tiring to even talk about it. And I'm going to I'd like to reference a book, can't remember the title of it, but the author is Paul Tillich. Some of you probably know who he was. When he said basically in one of his books that I read when I was in high school more than 55 years ago, that God is whatever your ultimate concern is. If you're ultimately concerned about something, that is your God. And that's actually an answer that I give to people who are focused on atheism, because that becomes, if that's all they talk about, then they're a religious atheist, and atheism is their God. So I think we need to be more flexible, and we need to be less worried about the traditional personality God of the Old and New Testament, and much more accepting of what's important to us. The UUA actually has a curriculum called What Moves Us, okay, which I believe was written by Reverend Thandika. And it basically picks up on this theme that if you're moved by something and you take action on it, you're following your God. I'll leave it at there.
Well, then I guess I'm up next. A friend of mine out of the blue once asked me, "Do you believe in God?" And I recommend this answer: tell me what you mean by God. Now you're not having an argument, you're having a conversation. That's all. Thanks.
Guess I'm probably next. I have some of the same sentiments that we've already heard, that whether a practical issue is that we need to be able to get along with people of other faiths, you might say, who have other notions of God or deities. And the word faith has been itself sort of come to mean that we accept people who have different faiths. And what was the faith itself mean? Well, probably something like we just heard, maybe the ultimate concern, for example. What you believe is worthwhile believing. What's your ultimate concern, or what's the ultimate meaning in life to you? What's the right thing to do? What's moral, I think. And for a while Mona and I were part of a local United Methodist congregation. And the minister, we talked about things like this. And I don't think there was a person in that church that believed in the traditional God you described, because of all the contradictions. The minister himself seemed to conceive of God as some kind of collective consciousness, a moral collective consciousness. And I think that helps a lot, because I think that's probably true. Most people in many of the mainline churches don't believe in that traditional God. Maybe some of the fundamentalists or evangelicals do. But another aspect is, when we were in India, there were many different religions, or we might call them sects or whatever. And when we talked to people there, they said, well, you can follow my God, Ganesh or someone, or you can follow another. And it was very clear that their notion of God was not some kind of exclusive, logically contradictory thing. They had a vision of one universal spirit, which might be like your ultimate concern or ultimate meaning or something like that. And people might have different names or ways of expressing their commitments to this ultimate cause. So I think that's a better way to approach this from a modern point of view, so you can feel some sympathy with people from around the world who have different faiths, you might say, or different religious paths. Look for some commonality in what's their ultimate concern, what do they think is, how they determine right and wrong, and rather than arguing about this old notion of God, which was never the notion of most people in the world anyway. I mean, that's a very Judeo-Christian formulation of it. I was just pointed out. Yeah.
Mona, you're muted. Mona, please unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, my concept of God is this. There's a reason that the universe exists. There's some reason it exists. Nobody knows what it is, how it got here, what happened, but there is a universe. And whatever the reason the universe exists is God, is my concept of God. Whatever. Nobody knows it, but that's God. Does that make sense?
It does to me. Yeah. Yeah. I once knew a Universalist minister whose name was A.J. Mattil Jr. He made his living Monday through Friday as a mailman in Alabama, in Gordo, Alabama, a little town. And on Sunday, he would drive 2.5 hours or so into Mississippi to the town of Louisville, where he served the Liberty Universalist Church. And when I asked him once, AJ, what do you mean by God? Because he was a real humanist. What do you mean by God? And he said, God is my heart's name for the mystery of the universe. And that really spoke to me.
That's nice. I like that.
Marie, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
I have my TV on, and I just saw a beautiful ceremony in Ethiopia, a religious ceremony, and I kept thinking, and of course, I'm in between listening to Jack and looking at that. I was thinking, that's one of the reasons why people hold on to their religions. They can make things look so beautiful. But the problem that, a number of people have a different concept of what they believe, in relation to God. But my problem is when those concepts start affecting things, ideas that kind of stop the. I'm searching for a word, but I can't find it. The things that affect how we live in society. For example, when you start thinking your religion has to affect whether or not I have the right to control my own body, then I have a problem with your religion. But or any other thing that affects social justice in any negative way, I have a problem with that. But I have I have nothing against, whatever concept that you use to define God. I mean, that's, an individual concept. But as I said, when it started affecting society, I have a problem with that.
Well, I wonder if we've exhausted the topic for ourselves. So I want to thank you all for coming. Is there any last word?
Only a thank you to you, Jack. It was great. I appreciate you putting the time together and assembling the entire service. Good job.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much.
We
Appreciate
hope you will join us next month on the third Wednesday for our Vesper service. Can find information at umiac.org. And if you were invited here by email, again, you will get that invitation in advance of next month's Vesper service.
Oh, by the way, let me ask, are we making any plans for this year's General Assembly?
Well, I'll speak up. We have not, and I suspect that we probably